So by now you probably already heard about the Wallstreetbets and Gamestop or GME or To the Moon, but you probably haven't or may have heard of a guy named Keith Gill, which started this whole thing on Reddit. Now Keith Gill had a long-term position in GameStop stock, about 50,000 shares or more, and when he saw a short interest in the stock, which other hedge funds or retail investors are betting against the stock to drop in value, that led him and other Redditors or Wall Street Bets to initiate what's called a short squeeze. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of the short squeeze because that's been covered already. What I am going to go over is why this will hurt retail investors more than the hedge funds, and already has. Quick disclaimer here, I am not defending hedge funds and I am not defending these retail investors that went against the hedge funds. What I am trying to get at here is the larger issue, which is the Federal Reserve, the US government, and the stock market in total and regulation. So one great example of a market manipulator you've probably seen in the news plenty of times and is a hot topic right now, which is Elon Musk. And Elon Musk has manipulated the market a few times with his tweets that you've probably seen, and I'm not going to go into, but he has been under scrutiny plenty of times and has been accused and charged of market manipulation. And with the Redditors and Wall Street Bets, they have directed some people to buy into the stock, so it's more like a group manipulation. And Keith Gill may be the head target for that. So as this all unfolded, you heard all this sensationalism and hype going on, like people saying, GME to the moon, we ride at dawn, make them pay, the hedge funds. And, just sayings like that. Those were people just trying to profit off of the situation. And they weren't, having these diamond hands, as they were saying. They were just trying to profit off of it and hurting retail investors more than the hedge funds. And what's sad is some people took this seriously and thought they were really getting at these hedge funds in Wall Street, thinking, that was the hurt of their, lifetime. And that's not the case. They're putting their blame somewhere else where, it should be somewhere like the Fed or US government. And this has just gone into a situation where the retail investors just got hurt. And some hedge funds actually profit off of this largely. And most retailers got hurt because this was a game of musical chairs. And some people got off the ride faster than others. And some people just fell off and, crash and burn. So Senvest Hedge Fund made $700 million off the short squeeze on GameStop. And there were some other people that made a significant amount as well, which was Michael Burry, about $270 million, and Ryan Cohen, which was a few $100 million, which he could have sold around $1 billion at one point. So that brings you to the point where these retail investors aren't really winning in this short squeeze, which is kind of ironic because they thought they were, right? But what it did bring is a lot of attention to this problem of this wealth inequality gap we have here in America and maybe even some parts of the world if you want to go that far. So there were some trading app brokerage firms like Robinhood and TD Ameritrade and some others that stopped trading altogether of these stops like GameStop and AMC costs and all those. There was like 36 or something like that they stopped. Then they pulled back and limited to like one stock or maybe some more. And that brought into a lot of scrutiny that they were attacking retail investors and not the hedge funds. So that created more of a problem and more of a situation of the blame game. And we are still not getting to the underlying problem that I'm getting at, which is the Federal Reserve and the US government, which created some of these issues that we're having today that these people are putting blame on. So there may be several reasons why TD Ameritrade, Robinhood, and some other brokerage firms limited the trading of these stocks. And You can go into conspiracy or you can go into facts, whatever. And the number one reason should be to protect its investors. And this has been an issue with any retail investors because of volatility. And when you have volatility, emotions are at play. And these retail investors are going to get hurt by investing in this stock because they do not know anything about the stock market. And what that does is, say you buy a stock that someone just told you to buy because you don't know what you're doing, and you buy it, and then you see it go down 20%, but then it goes up, or it just keeps going down. You're going to sell it because you don't know what you're doing, and you're going to get emotional that you just lost all your money. And if that stock goes up, you're going to think that stock's always going to go up, so you keep buying into it. And then it crashes, right? So that creates a problem of market volatility, and that's why some investors just need to be protected. But that creates another issue of regulation and too much regulation, which will come from this eventually. So one thing I will say before I move forward is that I see a lot of YouTubers defending, retail investors and Redditors getting into this GameStop stock and the short squeeze and all that. And that's going to create an issue of losing money. So you're going to have these unsuspecting retail investors get into these stocks in volatile markets, and they're going to lose all their money and life savings, which they already have done. And this has happened in the last crash, in the dot-com bubble, and plenty other scenarios in the past. And I don't understand why they're defending this, saying, retail investors versus hedge funds and the Wall Street. That's an issue, and that's going to lose people money, and I do not agree with that position at all. But I also do not agree with everything that's going on as well, of course. So don't get mad at me there. I just have to say that, and be careful what you do with your money. That's pretty much it. So the real issue does not lie with the hedge funds. It does not lie with Wall Street. It lies with the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government, and the people's anger is misplaced in the wrong place when it should be with the Federal Reserve. And what the Federal Reserve does is it bails out these large corporations, including hedge funds and big banks, and what that does is leaves all the small businesses behind and the retail investors in the dust. And so who ends up paying for this? Well, that's us. We do. The small-time, investors or retail investors or dumb money or small businesses. We end up paying for this in taxes or, most importantly, inflation. So when the Federal Reserve and government decides to bail out these large corporations, big banks, hedge funds, and other people that do not deserve it whatsoever, what this does is create a wealth gap between the rich and the poor, and elimination of the middle class, high unemployment, and an unfair and unproductive economy. So with that, we'll have less GDP growth due to artificial inflation, and by that, we'll have less goods produced. So we're in for a rough recession in these few next years, and we'll see what happens. So the Federal Reserve and U.S. government have created a situation where we have little to no free market capitalism, and we are reliant on big government. And this will spur less GDP growth due to artificial inflation, and that means less goods produced, and that means we will be in a rough ride of a recession and even depression in the future. Will that be in a few years from now? We don't know. Will that be in 10 to 20 years now? That might be more probable. So Janet Yellen has called the Federal Reserve, the FTC, and the SEC all together to talk about more regulation on the stock market because of this manipulation and the hedge fund losses and all of that. So what we may see is some more regulation, and this may give them an extra edge to the Bitcoin regulation as well. So stay tuned for that video. That'll be coming later. With all this going on, you will end up seeing more regulation of the stock market to protect retail investors. And if hedge funds aren't regulated as well from this, you may see some arguments and some PO'd people, to say the least. So before misplacing that anger, consider placing that anger elsewhere, such as the Federal Reserve or maybe even the government, because they're the ones that are taxing you and they're the ones that are bailing out these corporations and hedge funds. And they're creating this artificial inflation where we're not getting ahead. We are actually getting behind. So if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this, such as real estate or investing related videos. And I will be posting them every Friday. And I am Travis Jacobs, helping you be productive and building wealth. And I will see you on the next video.